Oh, what fun it is to ride a one-horse open Jeep. What's today's problem? This thing's always got a problem, doesn't it? I don't know. Start it up, find out, right? Ye bastard. So, it seems we're having starting issues once again. This will be part 2. So, quickest way to diagnose what the problem is hook up a multimeter. So if we come down here, oh, it's chilly. We're reading 10.28 volts. So I got the starter right here. This is your starter underneath the engine on the passenger side. I had the multimeter hooked up to the solenoid that goes from the starter relay. It's the little tab compared to the big 2. So I had the multimeter hooked up to max. So we got a max voltage of 10. It should be like 12, but I'm not really too worried about that. So we know that the starter is getting, the solenoid's getting power. So we know that much. Now I'm going to take this off max, and this red lead is just grounded on the transmission. So the next thing I'm going to do is see how much the bigger stud is getting. Come up here. This guy right here, that goes right from the battery. So we are getting 12.23 volts from that. So we've got a good connection. So the second quickest way that you can test if your starter is being a dopey little bastard with your friend the screwdriver. Now this is potentially dangerous, so you have to watch where you're putting your stick. You're gonna rest it against this bottom contact and touch it to the top. And this basically jump starts the starter. You notice she ain't moving at all. She ain't doing fucking bullshit. So I think our starters are a little de-chooched. So we're gonna disconnect the battery, and we're gonna take this little bastard apart and see what's hiding inside this goop of muck. It's just a little dirty, but I got her out. Let's see if we can clean it up just a little bit. Okay, so here we are at the healing bench. So I got it cleaned up just a little bit, and we're gonna take this thing apart. So the first thing that I think has to happen is these 2 long bolts on the back, 1 and 2, are gonna have to come out, and then this whole rear case should come off. I took one of these apart like a year or 2 ago. I don't remember what's in them much, but you know, start poking around. I see there's some screws here, but I feel like they're really hard to take off if I remember. So I'll take that back cover off, and then we'll see what's hiding. Okay, I took the 2 big bolts out, like so. So you have 2 of those. There's also 2 smaller ones. I have no idea what they do. We'll find out in a second, hopefully, when we pop this rear cover off. So it splits over here, and the whole little dicker should slide out. Now this rear cover should come off, so maybe that's what the 2 smaller bolts do, because this rubber will split. So there's some gears in there in the car. There's a rubber gasket and some other muck. I might have to undo that wire. I don't know. We'll see. Alright, we're in. So the first part was that I disconnected this over here so that I could pull the motor free. And then this whole shaft actually moves up and down if you have 2 hands on it. So what I did was I just shook the motor up and down, and you could actually hear it move because this whole outer collar is connected to a magnet, and it smacked the back of the case out. So you just keep doing that and you'll slowly notice it come free. So there's a bunch of crap in here that looks like what I would guess would be the carbon brushes that make this thing work. There should be 4 brushes that ride against this stator. There's a lot of shit in there. That's probably why this starter hasn't been working. It's so dirty. It's just full of carbon dust. It's probably all shorting out. Oh, yeah. Jeez. Now, the fun thing here is the second you take this brush holder off, all 4 of these brushes are going to go flying forward if they're not seized or stuck. And it's a bitch and a half to get them back on. If there's any brushes left, that is. Still got some brushes on there. Nothing great. I'm actually amazed. That's worn down pretty bad. Jesus. Alright. Well, we still have 4 brushes and they all look connected. So we'll have to clean that up a little bit. And on the back here, I'm not super good at knowing what all the names of stuff are, but these are all the copper contact bars that all those things ride on. And that's what I'm pretty sure sends the power into the motor. That's what gets the magnetic field to chooching. Now there's a big solid magnet in here, and you can actually pull this whole thing out. If you can overcome the magnetic force of the motherfucker. That's a 2-hand job. Boy, yo, 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 yo. But I was doing that. That's how you knock the case free. And over here you can see the gears and everything. It's a little planetary gear setup, so you get more torque. And this whole system moves in and out a little bit. Okay, so now we got this main shaft thing out. And you can tell there's a couple of balance marks on there. Actually, just one. The windings or whatever, they have, they're all sealed, epoxied or whatever, so that's cool. It's all dirty and whatnot. And if you come in here, you can see a bunch of permanent magnets, so I guess this would be considered a permanent magnet motor. Lots of carbon buildup and shit. So we're going to see if we can clean all this out. And see what we're going. Oh look, there's a little ball in there. I guess you don't want to lose that thing. Okay, so over here, looking at the brush assembly, this one over here, this brush, was actually jammed in the holder. It wasn't coming out properly. If you notice, it's not worn very flat. It's got all kinds of like weird just things on it. So, and it was stuck in the holder. It wasn't coming out. So I put it in the vise very gently and tapped it out with just this little punch. And now it's free. So if you notice, it should spring. This is carbon, so when it wears, it's self-lubricating. It's kind of like the same stuff you put in door locks when your locks are getting sticky. It's like a dry lubricant. So they should wear and be self-lubing and all that stuff. But if you notice, that one's been stuck for quite a while because you can see how big it is. And you can also tell, because of that, how much wear is on these things. So I don't know if this is going to be good or not. If it is, it's not going to be good for too much longer. I think I have another starter laying around. Let's see if those brushes are any better. Now, I put this brush holder on backwards just so that you could see what this looks like when they're all contacting. So they all sit there and they ride on all those little commutator bars. So you can tell it always only goes in the one direction because of how the brushes are worn. But you want to make sure that there's constant tension. And a lot of these, they look like they wiggle because there's like almost nothing left on them. At this point, they're maxed out and basically useless. We're not going to get too much more life out of these. So, that's amazing. I've only had this starter like maybe 2 years, maybe. So, over time, all that carbon that starts wearing off gets stuck inside all those little lines. Now they're supposed to be open because they're supposed to be separate because that's what makes the motor turn. When enough carbon gets on them, they start shorting out and not doing anything. So you got to take a flathead or a pick or something and try and clean out all those bars and make sure they're nice and free of material. Okay, now I'm really venturing into unknown territory. These Phillips screws are P3. They're the real big boys, and they're on there good. I took this little dude and started hitting a little bit to try and see if I could free it up. But actually that was dumb because the threads are actually in the body of the solenoid, so you'd want to hit the solenoid if you were trying to free it up. But if you get one of these guys, a nice thick P3, you should be able to torque them out. They're in there good though. So I've never seen what's in here before. So this will be new for both of us. Got some kind of arm on what looks to be like a pivot. So I guess this is the collar that moves it forward and backwards. So this is back. And then if we go in here, this probably sucks in and brings the gear out. Ah, neat. So it's just on a little arm. And when this big metal body goes in and out of the solenoid, it sucks the magnet in and out. Oh, wow. Ain't that cool? Huh. Nifty. And then in here, all you got is a spring. And then what looks to be some contact. So I guess there's not much serviceability in here. It's probably just a really big coil that just turns on and off. And then you got this guy that just kind of spins around freely. Kind of worries me a bit. Huh. Alright. Well, I guess that's why the screws are on there so fucking tight. There's not really any point of being in there. Oh well. Now we know. Even deeper we go, my dear. So, this little rubber piece is sitting here. You can just peel it right out. It's got two little ridges on this side, and then it's got a little retainer on the bottom, I guess. It just kind of sits in there. So underneath this rubber piece is going to be this little metal shield thing. It's just a little tiny metal tab. It sits right here. And then the whole system can come out if you'd like. So here it is. That's the whole little in and out chouchरमा body. So it's always permanently connected to the thing that's spinning, and when that solenoid goes off, this little guy here just goes whoop, pushes it forward, and it engages. Huh, ain't that nifty. Besides that, there ain't too much to it. So, I guess we've gone as deep as we can, so now it's time to clean up and see if I can get a hold of some better brushes. Okay, so I've been busy cleaning this thing up, and just making sure that everything's working properly, and all this, that, and the other. There wasn't really much more I could take off of this. I took off the nuts, but nothing else was moving, so oh well. So, I cleaned this all up real nice. I used something to get in between all the pegs, and then I used a little bit of sandpaper to try and clean the crap off. And then I put this bit in a drill so that it was spinning, and you take a really fine file and ride it back and forth while it's spinning to try and make sure it's real flat and clean. So that looks pretty good now. Just to show you what I meant, here's the drill, and here is this, and the chuck. So you just spin this with some speed, and you just run a file over it real light back and forth. Something real thin and fine. And you just run it back and forth until it's clean and flat, smooth, and all that good stuff. And then just make sure to go in one more time and clean out all those little in-betweener thingers. That way she works right. So now the only issue is our brushes, and maybe the solenoid's acting up, I don't know. Because it wasn't making any noise, it wasn't even clicking back and forth, so I don't know if messed up brushes has anything to do with that, if it's just shorting out or whatnot. So here is my other starter that I had. I had it cleaned up and ready to go, but it was having issues where it would click back and forth. You could hear it click, 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 but it wasn't spinning, so something wasn't working right. I don't know if part of the solenoid was messed up or what, but this is what the brushes are supposed to look like. Notice how thick they are. There's tons of meat, and they all move. So that's what a good set of brushes should look like. So that'll last for a while. So I'm going to see if I can take these brushes and maybe put it in that one. I'm not sure which one to do. I'll either swap the brushes, or if the solenoid's the issue on this one, maybe swap the solenoid or something, but I don't know. Alright, I'm trying to remember what the problem was with this motor. And I don't know, everything looks really clean. So I'm going to leave this brush holder in this assembly, so I'm going to keep all the parts the same. And if I have to, maybe I'll swap the solenoid if the solenoid might be the issue. Now, something I wanted to show, when you're taking this apart, there might be ball bearings. On this model, there's one on the tail end. It's a small one. And there's also a bigger one on the other end. Or maybe they're the same, I don't know. They might be the same size, but there's a ball bearing, so don't lose them, because they'll fall out when you're least expecting them, and they're kind of important. So I'm going to put all this back together. But there's two different ways you can put this assembly back in. You can do it where the brushes are in this housing here, and you pull them back, or you can do it the other way where you keep this out, and then you take the brushes out and do them that way. I'm going to see if maybe I can do it this way. I don't know if I did it this way before, but I'm just going to use like little screwdrivers or something to hold all the brushes back, and then you pop this in there and then pull the screwdrivers out to let the tension off. It's a bit of a pain in the ass, but let's see if we can do it. You know all those stupid screwdrivers? You know, the ones, the little tiny flatheads that you really never use, but you keep them in the bottom of the drawer? Well, here's a use for them. So, if you can see here, I'm using them to hold that spring-loaded tensioner back, and I just have the screwdriver resting on the outer housing there. So now, with all of them held back, you should be able to slide this in here, sort of, if you can get them past the screwdrivers and they don't explode on you. And if you have the bearing, make sure it's in there before you do all this. Some of these are still under just the slightest bit of tension. I might have to do this two-handed, but you get the idea. You just kind of slide it in there and make sure that all the brushes are back enough that you just pop it in there. Okay, once you got it all in place, you can pull the screwdrivers out, and that'll put pressure back on all those little guys, and you'll be good. And they should be sitting in there nice and pretty-like. Cool. So now you should spin it to make sure that it spins kind of freely and that it's not too bound up. I spun it in the drill for like 30 seconds just to get the brushes to wear on the starter just a little bit, so that way it has a nice contact on there. So that's all good and ready to go, and this is where it needs to be. So all the brushes are good, they move in and out freely, all the springs have tension on them, we're all hooked up. So this part is now done. So now we can start putting the rest of this stuff back on. We could put this part of the case on, although I might clean some of the goop out of there. So I put a little bit too much grease in there the first time around. You barely need any at all on those gears. And then we'll see what's wrong with this starter. Okay, so once your housing is on and you feel a good connection, you make sure the aligning tab is on there for that rubber piece. Then we can put the top house, we can put the top part on. Just make sure your ball's down there. Got a little bit of fresh grease, but I'm just going to leave the crap that's in there. Everything else is good. So we're just going to flip that and put it on there. And make sure that your screw holes align with those screw holes. Okay, last piece is the solenoid, so make sure that this guy is sitting in that thing. So you'll take this little dude and go in and make sure it locks. You should feel it just kind of sit into place, and you'll know if you did it right if you can pull on it and make this actuate properly. In this part, if your spring can fall out, make sure you put your spring back in. And then you're just going to slide that whole thing back together Make sure you got it aligned properly so that the wire points where it needs to. And then screw it back all together. Okay, so if we did everything properly, here we are set up on the test bench. So this is how you want to do it. You get your starter motor in the vise. We got our negative hooked up to the vise. And we got our positive hooked up to our main positive for the solenoid. So the way you can tell the difference, there's two big studs. One stud is going to go directly to the motor. It's usually the one inboard, like closest to the motor itself. And the other one is the positive one. So that's the one that gets the battery voltage. And then this guy down here, this is the thing that gets the starter signal. So when you turn the key, this gets 12 volts and it makes everything else go. So we got a little car starter here set up, and it's only set to 15 amps, and it's on start mode, so it'll always give as much power as it can. It doesn't shut off. So what I'm going to do is take this wonderful little flathead, and in the most dangerous way possible, jump between the main positive and this starter. Now by giving this 12 volts, it should make everything chooch. So we're looking for two things here. First, we want the gear to pop out. That means that the solenoid is properly using the magnetic field to make the thing go in and out. Second, we want it to spin. That means the power going to the motor is making all that stuff with the wire brushes and everything, turn the commutator and such, making the fucking motor work. Okay? So, we're going to go like this, and touchy-touchy, okay? Make sure this doesn't touch anything that's grounded. And also don't leave it on too long or it might get welded. So, by doing that, let's see what the motor does. Contact. Okay, that's what we want. That's what we don't want though. And that was the main issue I had with this motor before, is that the solenoid would make the thing pop out, but for some reason the motor wouldn't spin sometimes. So it would engage, but then you'd have to click it a couple times to get the damn thing to turn. And I never knew what the issue was with it. And even taking it apart, everything looked good, everything was clean, all the brushes are beautiful. So I don't know what the dealio is with that. Maybe we will have to swap parts. It's a shame, this is such a nice motor. Okay, so the next thing I decided to try was to swap solenoids. So this is the old solenoid on the nicer motor. And there's the other one just sitting there. So make sure when you're swapping these, you put them onto the proper way. For mine, the starter thing faces kind of out. So with this hooked up, let's see what she does. Let's see if I don't shit my pants trying this. Ready? This one here. Yeah, nothing. That solenoid actually does worse than the other one. Alright. Well, I got this put together, but these brushes are so pathetic. I don't even know if it's worth trying it with it. I might swap the old brushes onto this one. Now, just before I swap these over, I just want to show you the difference. If you look over here on the shiny parts, you can't really see too much. I mean, there's not a lot of contact there. It's pretty fucking terrible. And if you look on this, these bars, there's tons of like lines on them and it's just not very even. Now I come over here, and these ones, it's hard to tell because maybe we haven't spun it long enough, but it's overall very shiny. The entire surface is contacting, which is what we want. If we come over here, nice even wear across all the bars. Very smooth, you can see the exact part where it's touching. So that's what we want. So, I guess I'm going to swap the ends over. I'll put that on that. Let's see if we don't have a motor that chooches. Okay, so I got the new brushes on with the old motor and everything like that. I was thinking about using the newer commutator thing because it just looks so much nicer, but I decided for testing's sake, keep everything the same. So I tested it, and now the collar's moving forward and backwards, but it's still no spinny. Contact. But if you short the motor terminal to the power terminal, you get spinning. I could try swapping over the new solenoid and see if that helps. I'm getting really fucking good at taking this thing apart, I'll tell you that much. Alright, we're all set up. So, now this is the old motor with the new solenoid and the new brushes. So, we're all hooked up. We'll give her a test. You ready? Contact. I don't know about you, but I think we're in the money, son. Yeah, boy. So, what does that mean for us? Basically, I was having weak starting or no starting issue at all, which was probably something to do with the brushes because of how worn they were. And since there was damn near nothing left, if it was making contact, it wasn't providing enough voltage and amperage to really push the motor. And second, sometimes the motherfucker just wouldn't do anything. Wouldn't make a click noise, wouldn't make anything. And I'm guessing that that had to do with the solenoid. So maybe the contacts in there got rusted or dirty. Because if you look at this one, I think that this is a bronze material because it's all gold and stuff. But I mean, on the outside, well, yeah, I guess it is. It's just weird because it all looks rusted on the inside. It looks all rusty on the spring and everything. So it probably got some water in it. Especially this little dude. And on that new one that I rebuilt, it's very shiny, but this looks silver, not gold. But everything on the inside was still very clean and very nice. So I guess it was a two-part issue. Now, if you're going to be fixing your starter and you don't have parts to mess around with, when you do replace the brushes, you'll have to get two pieces. You'll have to get this little brush holder, because it comes with two brushes built in. These back ones are built in. I don't know if you could change them or not. You'd probably have to desolder them, but I'm sure that this is some kind of high temperature something or other, so I don't know if that's an option. But on top of the brush holder that comes with the two brushes, you also need to buy this, which is the lead, and two other brushes come on that lead. So it's two pieces that you'd have to get. So that should run you about maybe 25 bucks. So you can swap all that out and hopefully be on your merry way if everything else is in good working order. So I think we should be able to drop this starter in and roll. One more test for good luck. Oh yeah. Nice. Real nice. Alright, I wanted you to be with me whether this thing works or not. Starter's all hooked up, ready to go. So, are you ready? I am. Oh. Oh. Aha! Well, better than nothing, I guess, right? These goddamn starters. I might need new parts after all, but hey, motherfucker starts. Now it's gonna run rough until the computer learns how to start it right, but holy fuck. She starts again. Yay! Woohoo! That's how you diagnose a starter that's being dumb and not starting when you want it to. So, yeah. Cool. Did I mention it's freaking cold outside?